Hey, welcome to this episode of 52 Masters. In this installment, we get to train with Sensei Ron Thomas. Now, you may remember him as Cobra Kai bad boy Bobby Brown in the first Karate Kid movie. Now, what you may not know is that he is a legit black belt in Japanese Jujitsu, and that's what we're going to learn today. So that being said, let's get to training. I am 51 years old. I've been a practitioner of Okinawan Shorin-ryu karate since I was 7. There was some who would call me a master. I assure you, I am not. I believe that the true expert is someone who still has a student's heart and a beginner's mind. This year, to celebrate turning 52, I'm setting out to learn from 52 other disciplines, each from its own master. Some things I've tried before, others I'm a first-day beginner like anyone else. 52 weeks, 52 new skills. Christopher Ford, and this is 52 Masters. So Sensei, what are we going to go over today?
Well, I figured 52 Masters, you're going to learn a ton of technique.
Yes, sir.
And I kind of want to maybe throw a little twist on that. Maybe it's talk about principles.
Okay.
Maybe talk about what makes techniques work instead of just teaching more technique.
Sure.
You know, I used to train with my sensei, and we used to talk about there's a difference between knowledge and understanding. Mm-hmm. And then you go from, you know, a lot of people know a bunch of stuff. A lot of martial artists know a bunch of techniques. Many of them don't know what makes them work necessarily. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen so many people just talk about a basic wrist lock, and I've seen them teach in front of the class, say, just grab the wrist and twist it. No. There's scientific principles and metacarpals and metatarsals and bones and things that make things work in a wrist lock. Wally J was one of the, small circle theory was similar to what I'm talking about in terms of theory and understanding what makes things work. When we talk about a throwing art like Jujitsu, and I'm not talking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm talking Japanese Jujitsu, okay, where Judo came from. The throws were meant, most throws are designed for the person to land on their head. Yeah. They were first trained on prisoners. They would take prisoners and they would say, hey, let's try this one, let's try this one, okay, until they found what makes things work. Okay. And so there's a science behind the martial arts that if your back's against the wall, the chips are down, you have to know what makes things work and how to make the technique that you may know work, right? So imagine if a woman had high heels on and a guy's, attacking her and trying to put her in a car or whatever he's trying to do, if she was to take that heel and dig it into the tops of these bones right here where there's not much muscle to protect the nerves. Now, what the reaction, and I don't have heels on, I'm using my, but here's the reaction you're getting here is creating space. So if I know how to throw, and I know how to do a joint lock, and I know how to tie me up, and he's a pretty strong guy. If I know how to do that stuff, I can't do that stuff right now because he's got me wrapped up. I need to create space. One of the ways to create space is to dig a heel into, now he loosened up. Now if I know a finger lock, I can do a finger lock. If I know how to throw, I can't necessarily get a throw off from here. But once I create some space, there's some cute little moves I have for doing that. Then, once I get the space, if I know how to throw, but the psychology cannot be, okay, I'm gonna square off and start punching and kicking and sparring with a guy who's 100 pounds heavier than me, right? We need to know other things and how to avoid that situation, right? Follow? Okay. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. I like to empower people. Lots of smaller people, smaller framed men and women and children don't get involved with martial arts because they don't see themselves doing those flying high kicks, those throws, those straight overs, they don't see themselves being able to physically do it. But then again, the other side of that is, well, there are things that you can do, and once you understand pounds per square inch, then it's principles like that, then it starts to empower a woman psychologically, where she begins to feel more confident and knows things. Because how much does it really take to hurt a person?
Not much.
Not much, if you know where to strike. And not only that, pounds per square inch, there's a difference between this surface hitting the throat, which would do damage, and this surface. So if you're wrapping me up tight, and I know throws, but it's kind of hard to maneuver once I do that. So you backed up just enough for me to slip out. And the stuff I know how to do, right? So,
thank you. Good one.
Finger locks are another thing that smaller people and women can use because you're a karate practitioner.
Yes.
So strikes and I don't know if I want to go blow to blow with you.
Right.
You know.
Sure.
So, but if I get a finger, if I'm lucky enough to grab a finger, it's really difficult for you to punch and kick me right now.
Yes, sir.
Or I used to uke for Wally J.
Oh, okay.
He used to toss me around, twist my fingers. So, it's really hard for you to have any sort of real leverage right now to hit or strike me. You could probably maybe get away with it.
It's pretty tough.
And these muscles are just not as strong as me trying to start to do arm bars and things on you. So there's lots of things that a woman can do, smaller kids could do, smaller people like me. I used to do the Conan show at Universal Studios, the live tour show, right?
Yeah.
I played young Conan, and then I came back on stage and I fought Conan. So I played 2 characters per show. I played a warrior, I played young Conan. The big Conan, the guys who, I pulled a sword out and then I magically transform into this gigantic muscle.
I remember that show.
Okay.
It was awesome. Yeah.
So I had one of our Conans in the dressing room one time. We always used to mess with each other all the time. And I think he went about 260. And he was, probably 6'5", 6'6". And we were just talking martial arts and we were talking stuff, and he said, he just all of a sudden did a sneak attack on me, bear hugged me, slammed me to the ground, and if you can picture this, basically he picked me up, he slammed me to the ground, right, and he's got me tied up. He's got me like this, just like he's on the side like this. And he's saying, what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do now? And I reached around and I put my finger in his eyeball, right? And he completely let go of me. And I had total control at that point. And I, of course from here, because psychologically it freezes your mind.
Yes.
You don't want to lose an eye.
Right.
So, and what's he gonna do? And the more if he tried to fight, the harder I'll stick that finger in, and he's freezing right now. And he's an experienced black belt, right? And from there, I can get to where I need to be and get out of a situation. These principles and these things should empower people, especially of a smaller stature, that there are things they can do to protect themselves. And there are things they can do. Sure, if you know how to choke, if you know how to put an arm bar on, you know how to strike or whatever. But I just put myself in a position to do all of that just now. I'm on top, right? So I love teaching things like that, little simple things that have a psychological impact, that make technique that much more effective. So how do you get a person off balance? One of the principles I like to use is what I call a sword arm. So if you can imagine you have the radius bone and the ulna bone in your forearms as blades of a sword. So instead of me, like if we were, you got a little grappling experience.
A little bit.
So if we were getting in here and I was trying to, muscle you off balance, that's one thing. But if I just picture this bone as a blade, and I'm slicing your neck, and I'm going to slice around your neck. Watch what happens to your body. And you're leaning forward right now. Watch what happens. Now, and I didn't even get to the throw part, right? So if we're sparring, I, as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'd rather get inside. So if he throws a punch or something, I'd like to come inside and slice his neck right away with my sword. It's just a visual, it's a principle, but watch what happens as I move through his space, right? So he's starting to lean now. He's already off balance. Now if I come in, you okay?
Yeah.
So one more time. So if I'm slicing this, he's off balance. Now if I know how to throw, I can displace his hip and do anything else that I need. The knee and the ribs is a good ad.
I feel you, That was good. I mean, I was like, and it was so quick, and I was down. I couldn't even fight it.
Yeah, and it's just part of your movement. It's part of my body movement.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not something I have to stop and do. It's something I'm doing in the middle of getting to my throw part. You want to try it?
Yes, sir.
We'll try it on Rob. You guys work.
Can you walk me through it?
Sword arm is one of my principles. The principle that you don't have to move very far to not get hit, because I see people making the mistake of having, if your objective is to get a hold of the guy.
Yeah. Minimal movement.
Yeah, and if you're a striker, I get it. You maybe want to be up here where you can do that stuff. But as a jiu-jitsu guy, I want to get a hold of him and end this thing as quickly as possible.
Very cool stuff.
Thank
you
for absolutely
sharing this. It's we have a kata in our karate, and this is the move, right? Yeah. And nobody trains their fingers anymore to pull out somebody's heart out of their, right? But what if this was actually meant to be what you showed me? But we're moving forward, but we're turning it a little bit. So I can totally see how that applies to my karate.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to look at another art to see what was already there, but you just kind of don't see it in that particular context.
Yeah. So, another principle in judo is pull when being pushed, push when being pulled. So he's here and he's pushing on me. I don't want to keep pushing on him.
Yeah.
He's bigger than me.
Right.
So I'm going to pull while he's being pushed. And now I'm going to, get him to where I need him to be. And leave. Things like the clavicle, just knowing the body, knowing where nerves surface. He wants to feel it. He wants to feel the jaw. One of the most painful muscles in the body. Wherever a major muscle ends, a major nerve surfaces. Mm-hmm. One of the strongest muscles in the body is the jaw. Mm-hmm. One of the strongest nerves in the body then is the jaw. Okay. So if you know something like a judo knuckle, or you know how to use your knuckles, and you attack, it really hurts.
Yes, it does.
And the clavicle, I like to hook the clavicle. So if you were like to choke me, for instance, like people want to know, how do you get out of this? And if your back's up against a wall, how do you get out of this? Or so if we're here, what are you going to do? So sometimes I just like to hook the clavicle. A lot of nerves in there.
Yeah. That hurts.
Going back to how do you get a hold of a finger when he's got his fingers tied up, or he's making a fist? Again, knuckles. If you know how to make a judo knuckle, it's a certain kind of fist that is protected all the way around. Hammer fist, ridge hand, striking. But I like to make the judo knuckle and just bury them and you rub it back and forth. And when you rub it back and forth, his finger's open. And guess what? Now you got a finger.
Oh my gosh!
Right? And now I can do all kinds of
stuff.
The fancy fun stuff.
Yeah.
Break the arm, throw him. Show you another one of my favorites.
That's cool.
Chokes. Lots of people make mistakes. Lots of people make mistakes on chokes and armbar. No, I shouldn't say mistakes. They could just make them that much more effective if they know these principles, like three-way action, two-way action, versus, as an example, once you get an arm straight, if you're lucky enough to get an arm straight, everybody wants to attack the elbow because that's where the mind goes. Push, push, push. It works, but you also have to pull. Pull, push. It works that much faster because it's a two-way action. Yeah? And so when you're on the ground, same thing on the ground. Let me just lay down. Standard old jiu-jitsu arm bar, right? Here, but most people are just pulling here, pulling here, pulling here, trying to get them to pad out. Lift your hips. Two-way action. Got the elbow going this way and the wrist going that way. And that doesn't take a lot of strength, One of my favorites. I just got to do it. I just got to do this one. Lay down. One of the things I love about Jiu-Jitsu is you don't have to hurt anybody. You can nullify an opponent, an attacker, without causing injury. Whereas some arts, if all you know is how to strike, you break somebody's nose, you bust their ribs open, and then you're in a lawsuit. Sure. I like having people pad out and just having a little conversation. If I'm gonna let you go, if you come at me again, it's gonna get worse for you. Understand? So wherever that major muscle ends, a major nerve surfaces, and with my wrist bone this way, which is what people should be doing when they're choking, I'm going to attack this nerve at the base of the calf, and I'm going to lean back against his toes. I used to love doing this in class.
So, yeah, that's a good one. Let's have a conversation.
Want to feel it?
Of course. No, I don't, but yes, I do.
Yeah.
You know, and I do it for the people.
You do it for the people.
Okay, this is for you guys. Sensei Ron is the real deal. He's legit.
Now, most people haven't felt this, but once I apply it, watch how fast the pain hits. Okay? Now, okay. Now you can't hardly see what I'm doing. So the onlookers with their cell phones and videoing what might be happening on the street, they can't even tell that I'm hurting you.
Yeah.
And I'm not injuring you. I'm just causing a little bit of pain so we can get on the same page.
Yes. So we can have that conversation. For sure.
Yeah. So chokes, same thing. There's a difference between a choke and a strangle. One of the mistakes I see people make all the time is putting their bone across the larynx. Police officers make this mistake all the time. It's how they get in trouble. They crush the larynx by choking.
Yeah.
Got to put the larynx in the V of your arm and then apply this choke. One of the chokes I like the most is I'm actually attacking the carotid artery. I put this wrist bone on. Now it's one thing for me to pull, and it's a whole other thing when I pull and I rotate my wrist. Because the choke happens that much faster.
Yeah.
That's two-way action again. Pulling, digging.
And you put me in the position you wanted to because it hurt for a second. And I was like, yeah! And then you put me exactly where you wanted to.
Yeah. As my sensei used to say, if they gave out black belts to street fighters, to people on the street, there's a lot of black belts out there. And they're practicing their art every Friday and Saturday night. And you always have to remember that.
I think this is great for the training, and then we can take 5 minutes or whatever, and let's transition into the interview.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So good.
Yeah, man.
This is amazing. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, good stuff, man. Like legit. Yeah. Love it.
I love it.
It was like, back fat, my neck. Okay, so we are in the aftermath of Sensei Ron Thomas inflicting pain on me and Sensei Rob. That was
my pleasure. My pleasure.
You know, it was a lot of fun, believe it or not. And you know, the audience wants to know that Sensei Ron is legit, and he is the real deal. So thank you again for
my pleasure, man.
Being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You were raised in Reno, Nevada. And you had a bullying situation. And I know that some people who heard that story, but there's a lot of my viewers who hadn't heard that. So it's something like right out of Karate Kid, right?
It's like it was pre-Karate Kid, but you know, it was right out of the Karate Kid. I had a situation where I wasn't playing Bobby this time. I was playing Daniel. Daniel-san, the wimpy kid. And it was my first day of high school. And I went to a relatively the largest high school in Reno at the time, Reno High School. And on the first day, it was like orientation, getting used to the high school, the campus, where your locker is, you know. And I got weighed in for physical education, for PE. And I remember stepping on the scale, and it was a junior varsity high school football coach weighing me in, taking my weight, taking my height, and he looks at me and he says, He says, 97 pounds, 4 foot, 10 and a half inches. And then he looks at me and says, go home and eat, son. You know? So I'm like, okay, size matters, apparently, where I'm, in this school. So later on that day, I'm walking down the hallways and I'm looking for my locker. And I got my paper and I'm looking for my locker number. I've got my combination on, and I'm long hallway. And not a lot of people in the hallway. And I thought I was kind of alone. And I hear this laughter off in the distance. And I look up and there's 4 guys walking at me. And these 4 guys are just laughing amongst themselves. I don't know them. They don't know me. And here they come. They're getting closer and closer. And it might as well been Johnny, Bobby, Tommy, and Dutch. That's who was coming my way. And I was Daniel's son. And as I'm getting closer and closer, one guy locks eyes with me. And I'm like, I'm looking at my paper, and I put my paper down, and I go, oh, this isn't going to be good. Because he just had that Dutch look in his eyes, like
kind of crazy.
Just crazy, wild-eyed. He was Dutch. I think they wrote the character Dutch off of this dude. Okay. And he, as I'm passing them, he steps out from the pack and just punches me square in the face. Like, it stunned me. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that hurt. And they just kept walking. They just walked right by me and laughing like nothing ever happened. And I looked at them and I'm like, I needed Mr. Miyagi to jump out and do some tricks to these 4 guys. I'm like, I felt totally helpless because I was little, I was vulnerable, they just nailed me for no reason at all, and kept walking and having a good time about it. And there's nothing I could do. 4 against 1, 97 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's when I started martial arts. I said, one of my friends was taking Jujitsu up in Reno, and I said, yeah, I think I'm going to come and train with you. I need an equalizer here because, obviously the rules aren't fair in this new environment. So.
Who was your jiu-jitsu teacher?
Professor Larry Carey, Lawrence Carey. I lost him last year.
Okay.
But one of the most amazing martial arts instructors for a lot of the reasons that we talked about earlier when we were doing. Because he not only knew a bunch of stuff, and he had a background in judo and jiu-jitsu, and he trained with Wally J and Sig Kufaroth and just Professor Tor Tanaka and Willie Cahill from Judo Association, and he was a judo champion himself and a jiu-jitsu. And then he started training in ninjutsu. But he just understood what made things work. And he had this, and then he taught me a lot of principles and philosophies, and one of the best instructors that I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that because I probably am biased, or but really seriously, I've seen a lot of instructors. I've seen some famous names, some not so famous names, but I would always come back to my sensei because of the way he translated his knowledge and his understanding and his wisdom into the martial arts. One of the best teachers I've ever seen on the mat, bar none, around the world. And on top of that, he used to talk at the end of class. As much as I liked training in the martial arts, he'd sit and talk about life and philosophy and leadership and character building and how to think. And sometimes it was metaphysical and spiritual in some of the things he was, and I'd never heard anybody talk like that. And I soaked that stuff up like a sponge. It just resonated with me, and it impacted me to this day. And I think it's really what has led me to the path of writing self-help books, motivational speaking, life coaching, and really wanting to empower other people and help other people find their way. Right. Lots of people are lost. And it's through martial arts, and it's one of the reasons why the Karate Kid, I believe, has changed so many lives, is because it was the catalyst for people getting involved in the martial arts. And it's not really, the movie was the catalyst, but it's the martial arts training that has changed so many people across the globe. And there's very few institutions, churches and schools and families, that they don't give you as part of their core fundamental training some of these values: respect, confidence, leadership, that the martial arts do. So,
did you ever encounter those bullies again? No?
Never saw him.
It was just a one-time deal, huh?
No, but I know the guy's name. His name is Martin West, and I'm still looking for you, dude. If anybody out there knows him, send him my way.
Martin West, we're coming for you, bro.
I'm coming for you, brother. I still sweep legs.
Well, it was, bullying is awful, but it was a catalyst that changed your life, and you've been able to impact so many lives in a very positive way. So what was initially a negative has become a positive exponentially, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and I think it can bullying it's a big issue for me. It's a big deal in particular because now I have a 5-year-old daughter. And social media was not present back in that day, but it is today. And social media and cyberbullying and face-to-face bullying in schools, it's a very serious problem. You know, I think that it can be, if people allow it and are led in the right direction through, hopefully, maybe a martial arts instructor or somebody like that, a coach, a teacher, somebody, turning it from a negative into a positive, you know. And anything negative can be turned into a positive. I mean, I've even seen cancer patients, you know, say that they would never give up their cancer. In other words, well, they would give it up, but they would never, you know, trade what they learned by overcoming cancer and being in remission.
Yeah.
I think cancer can be a very positive life coach.
For sure.
Harsh, but it can be powerful, you know.
Your wife is a cancer survivor.
She is, yeah. Breast cancer. Yeah. We're blessed, and we're certainly, I don't believe in luck, but she's definitely blessed, and she's a wonderful human being, if you ever got to know her, you know, and to overcome that and go through what she had to go through. And we all, you know, and she did it with a smile on her face. She did it with a very positive mental attitude, and after the initial shock, you know. So.
Yeah, and she's also a black belt as well. You know, a competitor. You know, a mom, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, just, you know, tough to the core. You know.
Tough, but loving, caring, gentle, fun. You know, we laugh all the time. We make fun of each other. She's one of my students. She got her black belt from me.
Yes, sir.
She's very, very good, athletic. She's a wonderful human being. You know.
Right. I remember reading about it. You know, when you first posted about it a few years ago, and you know, you got a pretty good outpouring of love and positive energy. You know.
God.
And,
yeah. Thank you all if you were part of that social media.
My heart, you know, was just like, you know, but, you know, I didn't know you back then, and I didn't know her, but I knew you guys were just like, they're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and then you did, and you know, it's pretty cool. You know,
It's
obviously.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
But breast cancer awareness, get them checked, ladies. Get them checked and take it. You know, she had a little lump, tiny little lump, like a pea. And here's the thing, and here's why we were so lucky too, is 4 years prior to finding out it was cancer, she had it. Checked by 2 doctors, and they said, it's nothing, don't worry about it. Really? And then it started to hurt, it started to bother her. That's for 4 years it was growing inside it. Even the doctors were like, wow, you know, that's, usually it spreads a lot quicker, it gets a lot bigger faster. Yeah. And so, yeah, we were really blessed and lucky that it went the way it did. Because for a lot of women it doesn't.
Right.
So.
Right. I want to take us back to, you moved out to LA, Hollywood, to pursue acting.
Yeah.
And when you were auditioning for the original Karate Kid movie, they weren't looking for martial artists, they were looking for actors. So you kind of had to hide that ability, right? You couldn't tell them you were a martial artist, right?
Right. Which is ironic, right? But yeah, well, according to my agent, that's the story I got was, you know, they're looking for actors. They want to talk about your acting ability. They're not looking for martial artists to pretend to be an actor. They're looking for actors to pretend to be martial artists.
Right.
And they want people that are athletic, you know, so when you go on your audition, don't talk about your black belt. I'm like, right, it's called the Karate Kid. They're like, trust me, they're going to train you anyway. They got this guy named Pat Johnson, and he's going to train you every day. Just talk about your acting. If they bring it up, if they ask you, yeah, sure, you're a black belt. But just, you know, talk about your acting experience. So that was that's the behind-the-scenes story.
I imagine Pat Johnson picked up on it pretty quickly, though, you know, because he probably saw you move and went, you know something, don't you?
It's exactly what he said. Like word for word, he said that. But it wasn't until like 6 weeks in. Like we were training, and he was busy, you know, he was wrangling everybody. Yeah. And so 6 weeks in, we started to put on the gear. And we started to spar with him. You know, and spar with, you know, and I did some kind of move that I was familiar with, and a spinning back kick, and I hit him, and he didn't expect it. And then later on that day, he's like, "You know something, don't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm a black belt, you know.
Yeah.
What's your style?" And then we talked a little bit about,
Nice.
you know, jujitsu.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Mr. Johnson, one of the greats, you know, definitely an icon.
Yeah.
And, you know, his contribution to the Karate Kid series is invaluable for sure.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice man. I enjoyed working with him on 3, you know, so he's a good dude, just, you know, smart, you know, tough, you know. And,
Tough as nails. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough dude.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So, in recent times, there's a new show called Cobra Kai.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard about that.
You haven't heard about
No.
it? Oh, yeah, you might want to check it out. It's actually pretty darn good.
Yeah,
you
okay,
know?
I'll check that
Good
out.
writing,
Look
good
at
acting, you
Yeah.
know, good producing, good directing, you
Yeah.
know. It's, yeah. So, season 2 shows up, and the rumor is that the original Cobra Kai boys are back, and sure enough, there you guys are. And
Yeah.
it was a great episode. Just some great scenes, and you know, I mean, with you know, Tommy in the hospital and the campfire and the cool bar fight, you know, and you know, some of the other stuff. I'm not gonna say too much because you know some of
Yeah.
you may not have seen it, so we're not gonna spoil it. But was that call like something you were hoping for, that it's come out of the blue? Or, tell me about the call when they said, "Hey, we'd like you to come back and reprise the role."
Yeah, it's you got to kind of set it up, right? I mean, Mr. Zabka, Billy Zabka, William Zabka, and I are very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
We talk all the time, and, you know.
I remember seeing the video, the music video, "Sweep the Leg, Johnny,"
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that was like, you know, pretty. I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah,
That was
thanks.
funny.
Yeah, And he directed that.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He's a talented guy. He directed Most, which is a movie that got nominated for an
Mm.
Academy Award.
Okay.
Short. I mean, but we talk all the time, and his daughter's 1 month apart from my daughter, and his wife is named Stacy. My wife's named Stacy.
Okay.
You know, but he kept his mouth shut about the whole thing, and then of course it came out, and then we had a conversation about it afterwards about how hard it was shooting it, because it was 14-hour days, and he missed his kids because it's mostly shot in Atlanta, and we talked about how grueling it was, and then he had to go on the publicity tour, and you know, he knew. I think he had to know that the writers and directors were still planning on bringing us back, and he said, you know, when he first went back there in his apartment, all he had was he had a picture hanging of us, the original Cobras from the Karate Kid,
Yeah.
so that he could have us in his psyche, you know. But he missed us, and he talked to the producers about it, like, you got to bring my boys back, and they're like, no, this is where you're starting. You're starting at the bottom. You don't have any friends. You're drunk. You've lost everything, you know. And then now we're in season 2, and he's still not telling me that they're planning on bringing us back. And then I got a call from casting saying the producers want to talk to you about your character, about Bobby, and what they have planned, and you know. So then I'm waiting for a few weeks for that call.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I get on the phone with Josh Hield and Jon Hurwitz.
Okay.
And they're like, wow, this is 34 years in the making. You have no idea. You know. And I like, well, you know, and they were very respectful and very like, they're the massive Karate Kid fans. So they're like little kids. They're like living their dream right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so they explained what they had in mind. They kind of explained season 2 and how episode 6 with the original Cobras kind of inserts its way. That's why they call it Take a Right, because everything's going this way, and then Johnny all of a sudden has to take a right.
Yeah.
And which is a line from the original Karate Kid. And just what Bobby's up to now, and he's a pastor, and I'm like, that's cool. I thought, well, when I knew I was going to have a phone call with them and they were going to bring me back, you know, I was thinking, okay, well, where would Bobby be? You know, where's Bobby now? I thought he'd be a motivational speaker, or an orthopedic surgeon specializing in knee repair.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be great.
Right.
Yeah. And then maybe has a dojo, working with inner city kids as a volunteer, working with bullies and inner city kids who can't afford martial arts training. Because that would be, I think, stuff that Bobby would be, you know, involved in.
Yeah.
And they told me, well, he's going to be a pastor. I'm like, okay. And it took me a while to let that one sink in. Pastor. Okay. And then I read the script. Yeah, he's an ass-kicking, cursing,
beer drinking
pastor. Okay,
right.
He's still conflicted. He's still a Cobra Kai, but he's a pastor trying to lead people in the right, steer people in the right direction.
Sure.
So he's still Bobby. He's still, and I thought it was genius, just brilliant. And I couldn't be more happy.
Well, your character in the original movie he was kind of the voice of reason, though, at times, He was always the one who was, hey, leave him alone. And, he apologizes. He didn't want to kick Daniel in the leg, and he actually apologizes for it, So.
And mostly he didn't want to kick him in the leg because he'd be disqualified. He wanted to win the tournament. Bobby wanted to win. Make no mistake about that. He wanted to win the All Valley tournament, but he's also didn't want to hurt anybody in the process, and certainly didn't want to get disqualified.
Right.
There's a scene after that a lot of people don't know about, where hi baby girl, my 5-year-old.
I see her. We're gonna bring her on in a little bit.
Yeah. There's a right after I hurt Daniel's leg and I say I'm sorry, and I get disqualified, I walk across the mat, taking off my belt, walk up to Sensei Kreese, and drop it at his feet, and leave. And it didn't get used in the original movie.
Yeah.
But that says a lot. That right there says everything you need to know about Bobby.
Yeah.
They
shot
enough
that.
is enough. He had enough. They shot it. Yeah, we shot it. Yeah.
I wonder if it's in the archive somewhere,
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Definitely is in the archives.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, me too. I don't think I ever saw it. I think I saw the dailies. I didn't see it in the archive. But and I think it had to do with the way we had to end the movie and bring me back for part 2
so
in the beginning. And
it wouldn't make sense if you had done that and then, well, what's he doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So.
What
Baby girl.
do you think is the greatest lesson that you've gotten from martial arts for yourself?
People. I remember being in a conference in Las Vegas, in a room full of 400 black belts. And because it was in Vegas, we were talking about money and gambling, and somebody at the podium asked the entire room, okay, you guys gonna go out tonight and have fun, you're gonna go gamble, you're gonna, let me ask you guys a question. If you could go out and trade your black belt tonight for $1 million jackpot, how many of you would do it? You know how many said they would do it? 0. Not one hand went up. Nobody would trade the priceless gift that they've had in their journey of becoming a black belt. It's not just about one lesson or this. Yeah. It's their entire journey that's transformative and changes people's mindset and who they are as an individual. It changes your identity, and you really learn about respect and honor in a way that it's integrated, so it becomes a part of you. And no hands went up because $1 million would not be enough to cover that gift that they've been given. And they were black belts from all over the country and the world.
Yeah.
What
inspires you? Who inspires you? There's here in the background right there.
Ella, come here, baby girl. Come here, sweetie. Come here. Come here. This girl right here inspires me.
She's 5 years old.
Every day. She's 5 years old.
And she just lost 2 teeth, right?
2 teeth.
And how much did the tooth fairy bring you?
$5.
$5 per tooth?
Per tooth?
That's
how many dollars is that?
10.
Wow. $10 from the tooth fairy. That's a lot more than I ever got. As I say,
Let me
it's
go.
a union fairy.
Let me go.
She's inspires me every day to be better.
Yes.
To be stronger, to stay focused, and to remember what matters.
Amazing.
She's she's my inspiration. Stacy, want to come and say hi? One of my black belts as well. Great martial artist. Say hi.
Hi.
So.
Thank you so much, Sensei Stacy.
Oh, absolutely.
We were talking about you a little bit earlier.
You were?
Yeah.
I hope it's good.
It was all good.
Otherwise, I got to take him home and
You got to work
do
him.
some training.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you both. It's an honor having you, Sensei Ron.
Yeah, thank you.
Sensei Stacy, a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the greats. Thanks, guys, for watching again, 52 Masters, and we'll see you next time.